got some exciting news, some official reveals from Fusion Arts. So, for those of you who don't know, Fusion Arts is our Sun and Moon 8 set, which will release on Japan in September. This will be our November set, so it will come after the Evolving Skies set and will come in like the later half of this year. So, kind of happy about that because some of the stuff looks really good. It does look like we won't get any of the V Union mechanic in any of our sets, which kind of sucks, but they will be limited to boxes. So if you want to buy like the V Unions, you'll have to, buy the box, then you'll get the V Union pieces. But just having a look at these opening reveals, something to note from the pack art is we can't see any more Pokemon. Sometimes they release pack art with Pokemon that haven't been revealed, but sadly, all these Pokemon are a part of this reveal. Just worth noting that. So I should probably explain what Fusion is. So Fusion is a new mechanic that is extremely similar to, well, it is more or less the same thing as Rapid Strike or Single Strike. It's sort of this third kind of strike, if you want. It's supposed to be sort of a combination of the two, but it's also neither one or the other, if that makes any sense. It's not like super fast. I don't think it's supposed to be super slow. It's very much its own independent mechanic. So with all that said and done, let's take a look at the new reveals. So we've got MEW V with Energy Mix, searching your deck for an energy attached to one of your fusion Pokemon. Pretty mediocre card in general. I can see it just from looking at it because 180 HP is not particularly impressive. The free retreat's nice though. I do like the free retreat. That's probably the one reason you'd want to play this over the other Mew, because I'm pretty sure the other MEW V has an attack like X-Ball that does 30 damage times number of energy attached to both Pokemon or something. So that MEW V is probably a bit better, but this one has free retreat. If the other one has free retreat and I don't know that, then yeah, I'm sorry about that. MEW VMAX, should say, with the cross fusion attack, 2 colorless energy, which is important. Choose an attack on one of your benched fusion Pokemon and use it as this attack. And then Max Miracle for 2 Psychic does 130. And damage from this attack isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So any effects, I'm pretty sure that means this will go through Decidueye, if I'm not incorrect. We'll go through Decidueye and Zamazenta, as well as Altaria, which is interesting. But the cross fusion is worth noting because every fusion Pokemon we see, we have to keep in mind that their attack, as long as it's on the bench, we can copy it for 2 energy. And that will come in handy later on because we'll see that Hoopa V and Genesect V are really decent support monsters for this deck. So, cross fusion, 2 energy, choose an attack, seems pretty decent. Another thing to note is that this has resistance to fighting times 30, so you're hitting Urshifu for weakness. Urshifu is your resistance to Urshifu. And you have weakness to Eternatus and Moltres. Bear that in mind, because Moltres is obviously doing 190. It will destroy you in a single hit, basically. So that's where I can see this deck having a little bit of a hiccup. But as a Mew box, I think this is a good sort of deck to work with. Hoopa V with the Double Face ability. As long as this Pokemon's in play, it is both Psychic and Dark type. So the reason why this is good and why you could play this aside from like Moltres, for example, is because if this works in Eternatus, like if it doesn't clash with Eternatus' ability, then this means Eternatus now has a way of dealing with Urshifu basically as well. So hitting Psychic and Dark type weakness is great. The main attack is nothing too impressive, but it is 170, so it's a 2-hit KO or a one-shot on basically Psychic and Dark weak Pokemon, which is pretty impressive. So Hoopa V, not terrible. 2 retreat cost as well, which is nice. So Air Balloon, free retreat synergy with Mew. And then it also has weakness to Grass. Grass doesn't seem to be too popular right now, just because there's not very many impressive attackers. Like Leafeon VMAX looks like it could break the curse, but I don't think Leafeon will see too much play. We'll have to see though. Hoopa V though seems pretty decent card overall. Genesect V, a little bit on the lower side with HP wise, like 190. But as we'll see, you wouldn't want this Pokemon to have too much HP because Fusion System is an amazing ability. Like this ability is almost on par with stuff like Crobat and Dedenne. Once during your turn, before you attack, you may draw cards from your deck until you have a number of cards in your hand equal to the number of fusion Pokemon you have in play. So the reason why this, even though it doesn't seem broken initially, like, oh, you only have 3 fusion Pokemon in play, then you can only draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. So it's pretty bad. But like, what happens when you have 5 or 6 fusion Pokemon in play, which, let's be honest, isn't really that hard to get. I mean, we have Quick Ball, we have Great Ball, we have Evolution Incense. And then you suddenly realize, so that's drawn until you have 6. And it's not a Crobat style effect. You literally just have to have this on the bench, and it's not limited to once per turn. It just says, once during your turn, you may draw cards. It doesn't say you can only use one fusion system ability per turn, so to speak. So you could have 4 Genesect on the bench, a Mew in the active, a Mew on the bench, and draw until you have 6, play down some cards, draw until you have 6, play down some cards, draw until you have 6, play down some cards. And even though that seems like completely unrealistic, if you just play a bunch of Genesect V, that could be the engine of a deck. So it's interesting. Technoblast 210. This Pokemon can attack during your next turn. So very similar to Zacian, does 20 less more damage. So you also have Metal Saucer to work with if you're going for that kind of archetype. So maybe you play this like Mew where you have a bunch of different attackers, and there is a fusion energy which acts as a rainbow for all of them. So yeah, I think this is great. It's also a great engine for any fusion single prize attackers that we might see coming. And spoiler alert, there's a few. So yeah, I think Genesect V is a really solid card. Oricorio, Feverent Lesson. As long as the Pokemon is in play, your fusion Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent's attacks. You can't apply more than one of these abilities in a turn. So this is why I think Genesect is really good, because it's only limited to 1 per Genesect, whereas something like Oricorio obviously specifies that it is 1 Oricorio per, it's 1 Oricorio ability per Oricorio on your board, so to speak. Made a mess of that, but anyway, moving on. 20 less damage, it's more or less a hard charm. The reason why this is okay and why it's not utter garbage, and I would say this was garbage if it wasn't for this, is because this is 1 extra draw card for the fusion engine. Now, you'll probably find that you don't necessarily need Oricorio in your deck, but maybe you do. If we're saying your fusion Pokemon take 20 less damage and you pair it with Mew or something, then that means you're taking 50 less damage from Urshifu, could make all the difference. So maybe there is a future for Oricorio. Clampower, evolving into either Huntail or Gorbise. So like we saw with Evolving Skies, which had the kind of the Applin into Flapple and the other guy, I forget his name. It was the Flapple evolution line. I forget what the little one's called, but Applin or Apple Boy or something. But either way, we have the Clamperl, which, so if you run like 2 Clamperl, then you can play 1 of each to be more versatile. I think these fill a very niche category, but they could be good. Single Strike Jammer. As long as this Pokemon's in play, your opponent's Single Strike Pokemon require colorless more energy to use attacks. So Single Strike Urshifu is not so much of a threat right now, but Single Strike Gengar and Umbreon certainly do look like they could be really good. So that is worth keeping in mind with this card. I think it's too niche, even for, even though we're keeping in mind that Genesect is basically saying this is 1 more card, working towards your draw power, but still, I think this is very niche and maybe something in a control deck, but doesn't seem too great. The Gorbise, similar kind of story. As long as this Pokemon's in play, your opponent's Rapid Strike Pokemon have no abilities, so shutting off Octillery, Empoleon, Inteleon. Did I say Inteleon? Yeah, Inteleon, Octillery, Empoleon. And then I think that's about it for Rapid Strike. I could be wrong. There might be a few more that are important, but similar niche uses, but maybe not so impressive. So we see a Toxel here and a Toxtricity. Max Downer. This ability only works if all your Pokemon in play are fusion Pokemon. So this is designed purely for a fusion box. No Crobat. You can't play Crobat in this deck or anything like that. As long as this Pokemon is in play, the HP of your opponent's VMAX is 30 less. So the reason why it's got a lot of people talking is because this stacks. It's exactly like Genesect. This will stack. So if you have 2 or 3 Toxtricity, you get them all out, your opponent's VMAX could essentially have 90 less HP. So that's why Mew suddenly looks an awful lot more threatening. And as I'll show you with the what is it, Malaweta? Might be pronouncing that wrong. Who has this incredible attack related to fusion energy. The Mew box really starts to take shape because Genesect's your engine. You put a bunch of Toxicity in play. You put Malaweta if you want to. You've got all this. You got all this support basically, and all of a sudden Toxicity is saying, "Well, VMAX they go down much easier now." So we see a Dreepy line, a Dracoloca line, and Dragapult. So Fusion Assault, 30 damage, attack does 30 damage times in every fusion Pokemon you have in play. We've seen attacks like this before, they're not usually that great, but what sets this one apart, not just the free retreat, which is really nice, something I've noticed with these fusion Pokemon, is also the fact that you have the Genesect, right? Genesect is going to appear in every discussion you hear about this archetype because Genesect's just amazing with its draw power, so if you have like 2 or 3 Genesect in play, that's your draw engine. You don't need to worry about, I only have one Crobat once aboard this turn. I have Genesect, I then have Bruto or Research or Rosa, some of that. Although Rosa will be rotated by the time this comes out. I'd keep that in mind. But still, Fusion Assault 30 times. Hitting 180 isn't particularly impressive. It's still a 2-hit KO, and 1-hit KOs Urshifu at the very least. I do like this a little bit more than some of the other one-prize attackers. The only thing I would say, though, is if you're running Genesect, you kind of have to buy 4 Genesect. This won't be a cheap deck by any means, but it could still be pretty good. There is also an item card that increases fusion damage output by 30 for a single turn, so there is that to keep in mind as well. So you could end up hitting much bigger numbers. So this Malaweta isn't very impressive at first glance. Psychic Colors, awkward attack, 70 damage times the number of 1 energy card you have in play. Well, you can only have 4 in your deck, so really awkward card to use on its own. But then you remember that Mew can just copy this attack for 2 colorless energy, and all of a sudden it becomes awful lot more appealing because you just stick one of these on the bench and you basically just forget about it for the rest of the game or something. And you just copy Melodious Echo once you have 3 to 4 special energy in play, hit for like 280. You play a bunch of this. Wait, where is it? Power Tablet doing additional 30 damage. So like 280 suddenly becomes 310. 310 becomes 340. It really does start to add up eventually. So I think there is a future for this card. It doesn't seem too good on the front line, but when it's on the bench and it's supporting Mew, then I think there's certainly a future for it. Smear Girl, Trash Sketch, choose up to 2 Fusion Trainer cards. I think this card will be... We've seen effects like this before, and they're never usually that good because they're just too slow, right? You're sacrificing a turn, you're sacrificing energy attachment, you're sacrificing Smear Girl as a 1 prize. I mean, if there's good Fusion Trainers, like maybe you just play this to get back the Power Tablets, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't think it's particularly impressive, but it could be good. Elsas Sparkle, so Elsa as in the trainer, not the frozen character, thank goodness. Choose up to 2 of your fusion Pokemon in play. For each Pokemon you choose, search your deck for fusion energy and attach it to that Pokemon. So you can see why I was leaning so heavily into the Malaweta Genesect engine, because you can just use Elsas Sparkle, accelerate one of those energy to Mew, another one to a bench to Mew or something, copy Malaweta's attack. And you may be thinking, well, how does any of that stay consistent because Elsas Sparkle doesn't draw you cards? Well, you have Genesect, don't you? You have Genesect. So that's why I think this is decent. I don't think it's like any better than Melanie in some regards because it is limited, and once you get your special energy out and play, this card is effectively garbage. It's garbage, but I still think it's pretty decent and we'll probably see play in some form of capacity. Chile, Silent, and Cress. Search your deck for up to 3 fusion Pokemon, reveal them, and put them in your hand. Interesting card. Probably too slow in a format where you just can research or Bruno for everything that you need. There's items that find Pokemon, they're just better and more consistent. I guess you could play this as a heavy count if we see something like Genesect really taking off. I mean, you could probably play this in like the Dragapult Genesect deck, because you can just find multiple Genesect, Dragapults, GPs that you want to find throughout the game, so maybe it's not too bad. And there's also Power Tablet. During this turn, your fusion Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So an Electropower reprint. For those of you who don't know, Electropower did 30 more damage for your Lightning Pokemon. Great card. So all the amount of play in the world when it was, well, basically until it rotated. So will this see play? Absolutely. Does it like change anything right off the bat? I don't think so, because as far as I can tell, this will let you buff the attacks that Mew copies. So if Mew copies Genesect's attack that does like 210, if you copy it, you should be able to do 240 when you play this item. I think. I might have to double check that. If you can, then this will see play in Mew. Obviously, it will see play in other fusion decks regardless, though, because it's just such a good buff damage. I mean, just plus 30 is great. It's essentially a Leon, but an item card. For those of you who are kind of confused as to why I'm like really happy about this, and then it's an item, so you can effectively play 3 of these in one turn to buff 90 damage. So really good card. And then Fusion Energy. This is our special energy that we are searching out, and it basically provides 1 Aurora Energy, 1 Rainbow. It's 1 of anything. But this Pokemon this card is attached to isn't affected by any abilities from your opponent's Pokemon. So stuff like Zigzagoon and Inteleon are the main ones, I think, or Umbreon VMAX from the next set. Basically, any of those things, they won't do any damage to you. They won't be able to gust you up or anything like that. So useful side text to have, but other than that, it'll serve as more of a damage output from you. And then there's just a little bit of a note on the end. We first discovered the Fusion Arts trademark in January and assumed it would be a set. Other trademarks that haven't been revealed yet are V-Star and VMAX Climax, which will probably go into use in the fall, and Battle Legion Starbirth, which should go into the use in the winter. V-Star will probably be a new mechanic, while the other 3 should be upcoming sets. I think VMAX Climax could be a mechanic. I think it's possible, and that it's the mechanic revealed in Battle Legion, like Battle Legion with VMAX Climax, but I'm not sure. It does sound like a set that could be like the end of the VMAXs, for example. But apart from that, I think, yeah, V-Star definitely sounds like it could be part of Starbirth. I mean, the clue's in the name, right? But either way, it's interesting that we actually got another battle style. I mean, the fusion is a 3rd style, essentially, so just think of it like that. So is this all we'll have for Fusion? No, absolutely not. There'll be at least 1 more set, I can presume, after this set that has Fusion in it. So Sun and Moon 9. So Battle Legion or Starbirth will have more Fusion cards. And then, of course, the rest of this set hasn't been even revealed yet. So, yeah, I'm sure you get more Fusion cards. It's been Emma Power. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all next time.